Hi, everyone. I'm Randy Cherney, the host of Snack Break from Source. Every Monday through Thursday, we take 20 minutes to cover hot topics in commercial architecture and design, including new product releases, designer stories, industry leaders, and the impact of design. If you're tuning in live, know that you are automatically on mute, but you can use that chat feature there on the right to ask questions. You can also find a video recording on demand at tothesource.com, or you can subscribe to our new podcast on Apple or Spotify by searching Source Snack Break. Today is Monday, September 14th, and we are chatting about acoustic ceiling tiles with Eli from CertainTeed Ceilings. Hey, Eli, how are you?
Hi, how is everybody doing?
Hi. Before we get into ceilings, can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get to be with CertainTeed? What's your background?
So I actually started out in commercial roofing for 5 years back in 2002 to 2007. And I did big commercial flat roofs, low slope roofing, no residential. So it was all commercial. And then I didn't actually do the install. I did the technical support and estimating for the commercial roofing. Then for 10 years, I worked for Pella Windows commercial division. CertainTeed offered me a position as a territory manager. It was good for growth for myself as well as my family, for money and things like that. So started working with CertainTeed Ceilings. And, I actually, honestly, like when I was interviewing for the job, this is about 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in October, at the end of October that I'd been with them. But I honestly thought it was going to be boring because the ceilings are all white, they're all flat. And then I was like, okay, do I really want to do this job? I mean, it seems so boring. I mean, they're all the same. And I ended up learning a little bit more and more about it as I started, and the acoustical facets of the ceilings are incredibly important for learning environments. My wife is a school teacher, so I get that the learning environments are super. And she taught first grade for a couple of years, kindergarten, and then she
really
taught
made that acoustic.
yeah, fifth grade. She taught fifth grade for like 15 years or something like that. So I realize now how important acoustics are, and even in hospitals for that matter. I mean, just the patient comfort and office space. I don't know. It's pretty fascinating. So I kind of geeked out on all the technical stuff and the NRC, the CAC, and the ISO ratings. And a lot of people don't really know what the ISO ratings are, which fascinates me as well, because that's a very critical component for red list free items. And I was talking to Kaiser Permanente. He works for CB Richard Ellis and Kaiser Permanente, and he does hospitals. That's all he does. And he's like, I will not talk to an architect if they don't know what the ISO rating is for hospitals. So that was like a very profound, provocative statement. I was like, oh my gosh, for him to say that, it's like huge. But it's amazing how many architects don't know what the ISO rating is because they don't work on hospitals for that matter. But it is what ISO rating is. It's the particle emission for the ceiling tiles. So the fiberglass particles, the mineral fiber particles, and it's the ISO numbers go from basically 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the inverse though. The lower number actually performs higher, so like Armstrong has like a 5 rating or a 4 rating, and CertainTeed actually we go as low as 3. So it's actually a better product for the ISO rating. It's kind of cool. So a lot of people didn't know that, but that I kind of got sidetracked on
that
with my work.
No, that's why we're here. Yeah. So before we get more into all the technical nitty gritty, which it sounds like you're a great resource for, so huzzah. Can you tell us a little bit about CertainTeed as a company and their relationship to Saint-Gobain? Like, what is that? And can you sort of explain that to those of us who are maybe a little familiar, but maybe not 100%?
Right. Yeah. So Saint-Gobain is one of the largest building products manufacturers in the world. It's like 48 billion. They're headquartered in Paris.
Oh, I hope you get to go visit sometime.
Yeah, we need to all visit there sometime, don't we? And so they're 48 billion, and they have their hands in everything. It really fascinates me too. So they actually have parts on the
Uh-oh. Designers, I see Eli is frozen. Are you guys seeing Eli is frozen? Uh-oh. I will try to turn him on and back off. Hold on. Frozen.
Oh.
We are experiencing some. Oh, you're back. Are you back? You're back. Okay, good.
Okay.
I was worried.
So where did I lose you?
We had a little frozen moment, but we're back. Okay.
Yeah.
Saint-Gobain is a huge company. It sounds like they're in every single building product. And so that is how they own are related
so many
to
different companies.
CertainTeed.
They own Ecofon, which is a ceiling manufacturer. They own CertainTeed. They own probably 6 or 10 different companies that are just enormously huge. And it's crazy. So they have parts of Saint-Gobain that made parts for the rover that's on Mars. And they do Tesla windshields.
Oh,
and their
cool.
bread and butter was years and years ago when Coke bottles were really, really popular, and Pepsi bottles and things like that. They would recycle the glass on that. And this is many, many years ago, before the green movement and everything like that. So they're very conscious of the environment at that point. But they recycled all of those Coke bottles and made glass. And their kind of bread and butter right now is it's the glass that changes and shades for that. Yeah, for windows.
Oh,
so they're huge into that. It's sage glass is what it's called. So, but anyways, that's kind of their, been their motif for years. But they own CertainTeed. And, what's funny is I went in to go get my computer checked out, and they had to do a upgrade on it. So I had to have a hard wire, and it was in Puyallup, Washington. And it was just this office building that just said Saint-Gobain on it. And that was it. It was all brown and kind of enclosed. So I walk in there, and the guy goes, "Hey, you need to sign in here." And I'm like, "Hey, I work for the company. Why do I even need to sign in?" And he's like, "Oh, this is kind of a confidential area or whatever." Okay. So I sign in, I go in, and I go, "What do you guys do here?" And he's like, "Well, we make the round circular plastic things that go around the airliner window, the airliners, the moldings around there." And I'm like, "Okay, that's awesome. Good to know." And then I was talking to this guy in 2019, like it was a Christmas party, like the middle of December. And he's like, "Hey, what do you do?" I just totally met the guy, brand new. And I go, "Yeah, I work for CertainTeed Ceilings. They're owned by Saint-Gobain." And he goes, "Saint-Gobain, I know that company." And I'm like, "What? Who does Saint-Gobain?" He said that 2 days ago, he was replacing a hydraulic brake line on his bike, and like on his mountain bike, and he peeled open the wrapper. It was some other manufacturer advertised, but on the little tiny bike wire, it said Saint-Gobain on it. And I was like, "What?" Yeah. So I was kind of surprised by that.
Everything.
Kind of a little background on Saint-Gobain and how, we're financially sound. We just recently bought Norton wood ceilings. So now we have a wood ceiling line for CertainTeed. It's advertised as CertainTeed. So if you go to our website, the CertainTeed Ceilings, it's a wood ceiling made by Norton, but now it's marketed as CertainTeed wood ceilings. So any Armstrong Woodworks number, we can match it exactly no matter what. Because Norton's been doing that for years, and VE and Armstrong stuff or whatever. But our price is really competitive, and we have basically everything a Woodworks number has. We can match it 100%. So know that confidently. We can do that. And then we also bought Hunter Douglas a year and a half ago. So there's Daddy Saint-Gobain, pitching out some money for us, so, or mommy. Yeah. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the CertainTeed ceilings. It sounds like you guys can do basically everything.
We do torsion spring systems with, the Hunter Douglas line, metal ceilings, airports, embassies. I work with Miller Hull Partnership. About 8 months ago, they're like, "Hey, come on in. We have this project. We just can't tell you where it's at. It's an embassy. That's all we can tell you. And it's in Afghanistan." And we're like, "Okay, cool. But we're putting your product in, by the way." It's like, I don't even know when it's going to ship or anything like that. It's just so NDA type work. We're bidding Microsoft campuses now because we are on the Fusion program for CB Richard Ellis. A lot of architects and designers didn't know that. We just recently, pardon me?
What is that?
CB Richard Ellis is one of the largest.
What is that?
I guess you would want to call it property management / brokerage type, or leasing space, things like that. And the Fusion program, Armstrong created that, where they gave special pricing to CB Richard Ellis projects. So now CertainTeed's a part of that. So that enabled us to bid the 15 buildings that they're remodeling in Redmond, Washington for Microsoft, and multiple other buildings across the United States. So we have some really hot pricing to compete with Armstrong. So that's, like you said, we can do everything. These are our zigzag baffles here that we did with SAB Architecture in Seattle, just kind of a small little game room, really cool lighting. Those are our Ecofon product made in Sweden. Again, really good sound absorption characteristics, because what the baffles allow to do is the sound to be able to bounce off of side and absorb it in between it. And between the baffles and the clouds, there's roughly a 30 to 60% coverage that you need for the room to equate to a fully suspended ceiling system for the acoustical property. So you actually don't need that many baffles or the solo clouds. The beauty of the solo clouds, which is basically you take the zigzags and you just lay them tabletop and you hang them from the ceiling like that. We have some circular ones, some hexagons, some triangles, and some really cool products like that. But the unique thing is you have the solo cloud, you have sound absorbing here, but it's also bouncing off the ceiling up here and down onto the top of it, and it absorbs the sound on the top of it, as well as the 1.5 inches around the sides of it too. So you got sound being able to absorb. Pardon me?
It's more bang for your buck.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's more bang for your buck.
It's really easy to install, like in open spaces. So if you have like an existing restaurant or something like that and you want to add some noise reduction to it, then we can absolutely do that with they're called Ecofon Solo Clouds, but don't go to the Ecofon website, go to the CertainTeed website, because we've had a lot of architects go to the Ecofon one, which is in Sweden, and they're like, oh, I like that product. Well, you can only get it over there, not here, because we only sell like a small amount of it here, with a little, maybe a third or quarter or something like that of what we can get there. So some cool projects. Those.
So let's talk a little bit about, you were talking about, you like to get into the technical nitty gritty about NRC, CAC, and the ISO. Can you tell us a little bit about why what those three things are and why they're important?
I did, I think 70 to 80 presentations last year with architects, and I was at Perkins and Will Architecture in Seattle, and there's about 40 people in the presentation. And I said, okay, my first question is, okay, how many of you know about the NRC value, which is the noise reduction coefficient? It's the absorption in the acoustical properties of the ceiling panels or whatever you're using. And I think all of them held up their hands, like, I know about NRC. And I go, keep them up. Now, what about the CAC? And I'm not kidding you, about 38 people, their hands went down. 2 people in that room knew about the CAC. And I was kind of like, whoa, I need to do a better job educating, because the designers don't know about that value. They just look at it and go, okay, we want this. It's a higher number. Let's put it in, or whatever. Even the spec writers, some of them don't know that either. But the CAC, the NRC is just the noise reduction coefficient. And the CAC is if you're sharing a common ceiling plenum, it's the sound going from one room up and over the ceiling and down into the next. That's a CAC. And so a lot of the times, for example, an architect asked me to help write a specification here in Seattle last year. And he's like, I'm putting fiberglass ceilings in my entire project for this school remodel because I want the best noise reduction coefficient. And I sent him an email back. I'm like, do the walls go to the deck? And he was like, no, they don't. Good question. And I'm like, okay, we need to put in mineral fiber. So mineral fiber, anything fibrous is terrible with the CAC. So fiberglass, rock wool, or anything like that. So you need to have mineral fiber in if they're sharing a common ceiling plenum. Even if the wall goes 6-8 inches above the deck, you're still getting sound going up and over that little bit of a wall. So you got to really watch out for the CAC. And that's what I need to do a better job of educating the architectural community on, is the CAC. But the ISO rating for hospitals.
Wait, just before we stop on the CAC, is a higher number better when designers are looking in the spec document or the technical documents?
Higher CAC when you're sharing
or a low
common
CAC
ceiling
number?
plenum. But if the walls go to the deck,
Okay.
use fiberglass. Absolutely. No question. It's just a better product for, that space. But if you're trying to save money, I get it. They do make, and the other thing, the interesting thing is the frequencies at which the sound absorbs at 2000 hertz versus 4000 hertz versus 150 hertz. The mineral fiber does a terrible job in the lower frequencies, whereas the fiberglass actually does a really good job across the board. It kind of almost has like a flat line in the noise reduction coefficient. So if you have like an HVAC unit, the walls go to the deck, that actually, the fiberglass is going to do a good job in those lower frequencies, or footsteps, or the lower frequencies, things like that. But they do make the mineral fiber tile that has a membrane finish on it that does very, very well for in rooms where speech is important, like classrooms. But again, it really dives off when you have that lower frequency. So those are some of the geeked out, technical things that we've learned over the last 3 years.
Yeah. So it sounds like you need to understand, as a designer, the structure of the room. Is the wall going all the way to the deck?
Yes.
Who's in the space, and how loud are they? And what mechanical equipment is in the space, and how much noise is
you can
making?
get a little bit more creative with the mechanical above, and kind of dim that, lower that, volume in the room by using a different product in there. And we've got a solution for everything, which is pretty cool too. And we do gasketed grid for hospitals and things like that too, for clean rooms. And we actually we are the only ones, and this is thanks to Saint-Gobain, our parent company. We are the only ones that have a restricted room sound absorbing panel where it has a membrane finish. It's in a stainless steel bracket that can be cleaned and scrubbed continuously for years and years in a restricted room, like an operating room or something like that. So we're the only ones that offer that in the medical industry now. We just launched that about a month and a half ago. And again, thanks to Saint-Gobain, our mom and dad. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we covered the CAC. That's great. And it sounds like basically a designer should come to you and say, here's the structure, here's who's in the space, here's what is happening around the space.
Sure.
Recommend, and here's maybe the look I'm going for. Is that when you could help a designer select the correct product and be kind
absolutely.
of creative?
I'd love to be a resource. There's no I pride myself on my response time. As far as getting back to you guys, because I know you're on deadlines and things like that. It's annoying. I even do.
Everything's
I
always
am
a crisis.
So mad at my coworkers if they don't return my phone call in like an hour or two. There's no reason why you can't. We've got cell phones with us. I'm driving to Oregon. It takes about 3.5 hours to get down there, but I'll pull off to a rest area or stop sign, or whatever, check my mail real quick. Here's this. So I kind of pride myself on that. I know what deadlines are like for you guys. I've been around the architectural community the last 15, 17 years. So yeah.
Long enough. So right before we finish up here, let's talk a little bit about trends that you're seeing in terms of look, but also sustainability, because I know that Saint-Gobain has some great sustainable options. What are you seeing in terms of look, but also sustainable criteria that designers are looking for?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of wood ceilings being put in, like even schools for that matter. And everybody's like, what? Wood ceilings in schools? Why? Well, they got the budget. Bonds that pass are huge. So we're seeing a lot of wood ceilings in schools, which is kind of neat. And then, a lot of the open spaces, the restaurants and things that people want to add sound absorption to is pretty critical as well. So we're seeing a lot of the solo clouds going in. We just got a project that just came through with C2K Architecture. I think they're down in Albany or Salem or Eugene, somewhere down south in Oregon. They specified a cool wave looking baffle project, that you can cut off every 6 or 8 inches to create the wave look to it. So That was in a little hotel office space, you know, like right when you walk into the hotel room, you're going to see this cool little wave baffle in there. You know, we're just seeing a lot of the well projects being considered with the declare labels and things like that. So we have red list free ceiling tiles with our M. And here's an interesting story. The Symphony F ceiling tile, and I always like to share this, is we had a declare label from the Living Building Challenge, and it got revoked because they said, well, here's the big heavy hitters going in, you know, into the match in the ring. Armstrong says, no, CertainTeed uses the same formula we do to create the fiberglass ceiling tile. And Armstrong is like, yeah, they're using the same exact thing we are. So they shouldn't have a declare label. Well, what I found out is like 5 months after this whole thing went through, after we got it revoked, is when we tested our fiberglass ceiling tile at the end of manufacturing, it had no traces of formaldehyde in it, where Armstrong's did though. So, but they went after us and Living Building Challenge saying you use formaldehyde in the, you know, the whole process there. So I was like, all right, well, so be it. So we ended up losing that battle. So we do have a very clean fiberglass ceiling tile as well. And then for hospitals, awesome products for that too. So.
Great. Well, designers, if you want to reach out to Eli and get chatting about your next ceilings project, or maybe you have a client that realized that everything's too loud all of a sudden and you need to get some acoustic separation going, you can definitely do that from our site right now. For those of you who are tuning in to our podcast, you can check out the episode description for the same link. And then designers, also, if you'd like to register for another snack break, we have a whole lineup for you this week, so you can smash that register now button. But in the meantime, it doesn't look like we have any questions. Eli, this was super helpful to understand. Oh, yeah. It sounds like there's a lot to do in a ceiling, more than meets the eye. So that's awesome.
Thanks,
all right,
bye.
Well, we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. We'll see ya. Bye.